Hello, ladies and gentlemen back here. Gentlemen, adults, teens, Ellie alike. Welcome to my E3 summary sort of thing for my own channel, because I've done videos. I've done my reaction videos to Xbox, PlayStation, EA. Well, not EA. PlayStation, Ubisoft, and Nintendo now, and it's all done. It's all gone. I'm all done. And I've decided to just do a review sort of thing as an overall whole, just an overall review thing. It's a part of the Review-O-Lution that's a little bit different. It's gonna be just like a big summary about everything I've felt about E3, about everything that I've seen, and including some of the smaller stuff I forgot to mention or never really saw, like Bethesda's conference or Square Enix's conference. I'll be talking about those real quick. So, just to review all these other people, Nintendo, Xbox, EA, PlayStation, all this stuff, I just want to talk about it real quick so that way I can just get it out of the way and really have my final thoughts out there, because I didn't really like the way I ended most of my videos on how they felt, because those were first-time reactions, and now I just want to end it off with, my actual feelings towards certain companies, certain parts of the companies. Just so I can have a defining middle ground for how I feel, so that way it's out there in the open and people can see it. And I've had time to think about it, because I've had time to think about how I really feel about the games and the stuff that's been announced, so that way I can get it out of the way, and so that way I have a better, clearer head to look at, because I've actually done some thinking, and I've seen all the other stuff that's happened, so now I'm more, more focused, more clear-headed, so I'll have a lot of the stuff referenced here and there, so it's going to be a little bit different of a video, at least for Review-O-Lution goes, so keep that in mind. So the first game or company's EA press conference at E3, I'll be talking about EA real quick. Most of their stuff is okay, safe, and it seems alright, although the one thing I can say is oh, not again. They're releasing a mobile game of a franchise that some people like, Command and Conquer, and they're making it a mobile game. Now, mobile games, I will say, I don't hate that much, and I don't dislike them, but even then, this is kind of bad, because it's the whole Plants vs. Zombies Overlord situation where you put a game that everyone likes on a mobile device system. That sounds like a good idea to some degree, but when you make the game nearly unplayable with microtransactions and a lot of stuff that hinders the gameplay experience, then you really have an issue there. So yeah, EA release press conference was okay except for that part, and Anthem looks alright, but from what I've heard so far, it has little microtransactions, which should be none, but whatever. It has cosmetic, stuff where it at least has you basically playing the game in its entirety. Basically, you have the game and you play it, but that's it. That's all you do, and that's okay. But then there's cosmetic stuff for skins, color skins, and different colored weapons maybe. This is kind of like the Ark Survival, or no, Evolve situation, where the game came out, it was full price, but it wasn't really cheap, and it also had a lot of paid DLC stuff like skins and stuff like that. So it's a little bit dumb in that degree, having that around. So that's a little bit dumb. But overall, my thoughts on EA's press conference is that it was both safe and kind of aggravating for some people. And I can see why it was aggravating for some people, and it really didn't bode a lot of confidence from me, at least. That's how I felt. And by the way, I forgot to mention this, but I'm starting off with the smaller companies, because the company performances I didn't see, because at first, because I didn't think they were going to announce anything big, but some of them did. Some of them announced some big stuff, although it's not really too big, oh, they didn't really give dates, but it's still pretty cool what they announced, depending on how you look at it. So let's talk about Bethesda, because I did not see their conference. And how'd they do? well, in all honesty, I think they did pretty good. They really hyped up a lot of people and gave them some confidence because they announced Elder Scrolls 6 finally. Finally, because like I've heard of Skyrim's infamous like, oh hey, it's like the cockroach of gaming, and it really kind of was, especially last year when everyone was talking about Skyrim, everything Skyrim. So it's nice to see that they actually decided, hey, let's actually make a sequel to this game, finally. I don't care whether or not the game sucks, I'm just glad we can stop talking about Skyrim. Okay, so aside from that, I am excited about one other thing, Doom Eternal, like the sequel to Doom 2016, was it? Yeah, the new Doom finally has a sequel, which is pretty good, and I'm glad that's the thing, because I really did like Doom, like the new Doom, because it was action-packed, it was fun. I did like a little bit of what the story was doing, and I really want to see more of that. Especially here, I want to see more of what happens, like, afterwards. I want to see what's happened to Doom Guy since then. Because it seems interesting. It seems like as if it's on Earth, and Earth has kind of fallen apart due to the outbreak. So, maybe that's the case. I'm not sure what's happened, but I'm pretty sure something like that's happened. So, hopefully that gets resolved. Hopefully. Okay, now let's talk about Square Enix real quick. Yeah, Square Enix. Listen, I'm not the biggest fan of, well, actually I am, honestly. That's a lie. I'm a fan of, like, some of Square Enix's games, but I'm not sure about them as a company as a whole. It's something, it's just like, oh, hey, I know Square Enix, I've played some of their games, but I'm not sure how to feel about them as a general whole, because a lot of the stuff they revealed wasn't really all that exciting, to me at least. The only interesting thing is, like, to me, from what I've heard and saw, was the Monster Hunter / Final Fantasy crossover game that they're planning to do. And that's like, that seems interesting, but it's like, it's not really that much. It's like, yeah, that's cool that it's coming out, but it's like, I don't know how to feel about that. This is like, it's a bit here and there. So, and then there's Kingdom Hearts, which, okay, I'll give Kingdom Hearts my own 2 cents right now, because like it's a thing that's happened everywhere, and might as well give it my opinion as a whole, because at this point it really is something that you have to mention at least. Kingdom Hearts 3 got pushed back to next year, which is kind of a bit here and there, because like people wanted to come this year, and you know what, I will give them that they should have just stuck to this year. But if they had trouble with it and they had to push it back, I can understand that. But at the same time, I'm like, oh man, that's gonna disappoint some fans, but I'm willing to wait. I am a patient man, so I'm willing to wait. I want Kingdom Hearts to come out in general, so I'm okay with it coming out next year. So that's fine. But it's just 1 month away, really no difference, but okay. So yeah, that was Square Enix's conference. I didn't really like it, but it was alright. I just thought, like, it was alright, so maybe they'll do better. Maybe they'll get fans' attention some other time. Now, Xbox. Xbox is a conference. It's a weird thing, because it's like, I'm an Xbox fan, honestly. I grew up playing a couple of games on the Xbox, not the original, although I did have original games for my Xbox 360. Basically, I grew up playing PlayStation, and then I played an Xbox growing up. It was like an Xbox 360, and I was like, these games are pretty good, honestly. I played a few games that were pretty good, and somewhat exclusive to Xbox at the time. So it's really weird going into this and saying this, but Xbox was like very eye-catching this year, but not because of its games. Well, not because of exclusive games, I would say. And that's a weird thing to say, at least for like any of these conferences, because it's like, it's like, first of all, like a lot of the games that they did show weren't really technically exclusives. Some of the ones were like, world premieres of other games like Jump Force and Devil May Cry. These games, I doubt they're ever gonna stay, like, those games are not gonna be exclusive to the Xbox. I doubt that. And it's like, oh yeah, Xbox. Wow, you're revealing a lot of stuff, but none of it is like none of it is exclusive to you, so that's weird. I mean, I understand that, but that's like something that just brings no attention to Xbox, really. It brings more attention to the games, really. So that's a really weird situation there. It's like, yeah, these games are here and there, but it's like, why? Like, it's like, it brings more attention to the games than actually the Xbox itself, because Xbox itself had a couple of games that were announced, like Gears of War, Halo, the Battletoads game. That's actually interesting that I found. It's like, you're finally bringing out an old IP that you have, finally. And all these other, and a few like little other games here and there, like that Fox game that's a 3D Zelda, top-down Zelda thing. Like, you're introducing all these little games and these big title games, but you're not giving dates. Like, they literally just said Halo Infinite is happening and nothing after that, and Gears of War 5 is happening and nothing after that. And they like announced Crackdown and a couple of other games, but they gave dates, at least to some degree, but they really didn't really showcase like a lot of new stuff that they had, because Crackdown was already announced before last year at E3, and they didn't really give dates for that either. So, but even then, like some of the new games that they announced, like the Halo and the Gears of War, they didn't really give dates, they didn't really give much information on them. And it's like, well, like if you want people to like really like this year's E3, you have to give them more than that. But at the same time, a lot of the stuff that they did announce that was pretty exciting, like Devil May Cry, like I said, and Battletoads. Well, not Battletoads, like Devil May Cry, Jump Force, I was really excited about, but none of that comes to the Xbox exclusively. And it's like, well, that's pretty cool that you announced it, but it's like, it's not your stuff, technically. Well, not exclusively your stuff, so it's like, I don't know how to feel about this. Xbox had a good showing, but at the same time, I'm not sure how to feel about that. It's like, it's weird. It's really weird. Oh, man, it's really weird. Okay. Now let's move on to Ubisoft. And I know, like, I should have stuck Ubisoft with the other guys that have, like, you know, done the whole, the smaller companies thing, like, put Ubisoft with, Bethesda, E3, EA's, and Square Enix things that I said before, but you know what? I decided to do Ubisoft as a separate one because I actually did a reaction video to them. So, how exactly was their conference? It was alright. Nothing big, nothing great was announced, really. That's really all I have to say. There were a couple of things, and there was one thing that had me salty at first, but I understand what it is, and I'm a little bit better about it. For those of you curious as to what I mean, well, how do I put this? Yeah, everyone remembers that Fox in the Cloud, or Star Fox if you just want to be general about it, like, you know, just be quick about it. Star Fox is coming over to a game called Starlink, and, man, like, at first I was angry about that, but you know what, I've calmed down about it, and I understand the pros for it. Ubisoft and Nintendo have a good relationship. Might as well give them a console-exclusive game character. It's like the situation with Soul Calibur when Link was an exclusive character to that game on the GameCube. It sold a lot of copies, and a lot of people got into Soul Calibur, at least on the GameCube, because of that. And I know some people liked Soul Calibur beforehand, but you have to admit that Soul Calibur on the GameCube actually sold more than the actual other consoles exclusive games. So you know, there's that. So it's a like a decent thing that they're doing. That they have Star Fox as a collectible character, sort of, and they're introducing him into another game, and that's a good partnership idea. That's a good little thing that they're doing. But it's like, I don't know. It's like, considering that Star Fox Zero did really badly and got really bad reviews, I don't know whether or not, like, what do you call it, Star Fox will ever be in anything anymore. And before anyone says anything, I know what you're gonna say. I know you're gonna say, like, well, are you the type of fanboy of Star Fox who says, oh, Star Fox 64 is the only good Star Fox? No, I'm not. I actually liked Star Fox Command, a couple of the handheld games on the DS. Heck, I thought Star Fox Zero was alright, and I understand what its problem was. It had bad controls. You had to use the stupid control thing to use it. But at best, it was a a mediocre at somewhat better than average game, I think. But its controls really hampered it. Like, oh my god, if they remade that for the Switch and got rid of the tablet control thing, I'm pretty sure some people would say, oh, it's a pretty good game overall. So Star Fox Zero would be Star Fox Zero, yeah, Star Fox Zero as a game, it works. It works well. No, wait, no, it doesn't work well. What am I talking about? No, but as a whole, having Star Fox and Star Link is a good move on the partnership of Nintendo and Ubisoft. So, you know what? I've gotten used to that. I just hope that Star Fox doesn't stay in this game, you know, as a permanent fixture, like Crash and Spyro did in their games of Skylanders. Hopefully they're not just stuck there in purgatory. Hopefully they get another game out. Because, like, chances are you'll forget about Star Fox, or they'll forget about Star Fox entirely, and just, like, put them buried in, like, an added character. It's kind of like the situation in Smash where Captain Falcon's stuck in Smash Bros., and he doesn't have a new game, or Ness is stuck in Smash Bros., but he doesn't have a new game coming out. So that's really, like the sad thing there, so... I've gotten used to it, and I think that Star Fox might get a new game if the popularity of Starlink goes off on the Nintendo Switch exclusive one. So maybe that'll put people and say, I want Star Fox, we want Star Fox. Maybe they'll make an actual good another good Star Fox game, just so like Star Fox isn't stuck in the past. Hopefully they do. Okay, now we move on from Ubisoft to PlayStation. Now the PlayStation conference was good and weird slash just okay slash they could have done better sort of thing. It's a weird thing. It's like they had a lot of good games and gameplay showings of all the games that come out. Like they showed off The Last of Us, they showed off Death Stranding, they showed off frickin' the Ghost of Tsushima thing. They also showed off gameplay for Spider-Man. That's pretty cool. But overall, they didn't really give dates to those games. And I'm like, can you at least give us dates? These games look like they're almost done, or they are done. Can you give a time set window? No. And I understand why they don't want to do a time set window, because doing time set windows means you have to live up to that particular expectation. So that's dangerous to do. That's really dangerous to do. It's like, you really shouldn't do that, because it's like, you know, you're promising way too much of something at a certain time. So suggesting you really should like set a time window when you are absolutely sure when you're ready. And but still, it's like, man, all these games were already announced, like Spider-Man, freaking Death Stranding, heck, even what do you call it, The Last of Us was announced. All these games were announced, but none of them were given dates last year. And so I was hoping this year that we get at least one or two at least talked about. But no, not really. They weren't really announced. They were just, oh, frick, oh my god. It's like, oh no. Oh no, none of these games were announced. It's like, oh no, you're gonna have to wait a long time for these games to come out. Either that or next E3 for them to come out. And I don't know, it's a little bit weird, because it's like, I'm not the biggest fan of these games, but I understand what the issue is if you don't announce them. But at the same time, I understand that, hey, they just talked about them. You can't really expect much, or you can't really do that much. And some of them are really, really, like, either far behind or not really ready. So you want the games at their perfect, like, their best, right? So you're going to have to be ready for them, and you have to wait for them to come out. So it's like, well, like, God of War didn't technically get an announced date, but it came out around the same time this year, and that was a time window, so that's something at least. So maybe they might come out next year. Not next year, like next year in the first few months. At least one of them does, I think, hopefully. Hopefully it does. Okay, now that we're done with and overall my feelings towards the PlayStation conference was, it was weird, it really wasn't that great, and it really could have done way better than before, honestly. It really could have done better. Okay, so let's, and that kind of hurts for me, because I'm a PlayStation fan. I grew up on the PlayStation, like I said before, so that really hurts. So let's just move on to the next big one. The next big one, the final Nintendo. Oh, Nintendo. It's like the thing with Nintendo is that they don't really take E3 too seriously. So it's like, oh, you kind of need to not expect this stuff. But at the same time, you really want to see some good stuff here and there. But I remember listening to someone say, like this is something you need to learn as a reviewer, and I'm slowly learning it, is that you need to learn like how to curb your expectations / not have expectations and review what you've got. Basically, it's like, if you expect something from like this type of E3 stuff, you're really expecting a lot, and you're gonna set yourself up for like disappointment. And you know what? I kind of agree with that. I kind of agree. But at the same time, it's like they could have done more, and they did announce some games in the previous E3, but they really didn't really talk about them throughout the entire year, including now. They didn't really talk about like anything like that they previously announced, and some people would really want that. And you know what? I will say that if you announced it last year, and you know you want to talk about it, you should at least talk about it, at least even in the coming of years, and even now you should at least like refer to it, even if you like people sort of expect that or are looking forward to that. You kind of need to at least give some confidence that you're still working on certain things. It's a thing where it's like, well, yeah, you know, you shouldn't really expect too much, but even then, it's like, you need to build in confidence for certain things. Like, this is something I can give somewhat the PlayStation 1, Sony and PlayStation some, like, credit on. It's like, they announced those games, like, you know, The Last of Us, and God of War, and Spider-Man last year, but they at least referenced them here and focused on them and showed that, hey, the games are coming along great, and they might be ready by this year. Well, that we're not going to say, but they might be. So, you know, that's something that they did, and you know what? That's something that Nintendo could have done and said, like, oh, hey, you know, Metroid or Pikmin or any other game we talked about, or even that Yoshi game we talked about, yeah, it's coming out about in this year, maybe. And it's like, yeah, they announced, like, Yoshi for 2018, but it's like, they never really said when it'll come out, and they haven't really talked about it either. And then there's like Metroid Prime 4 that they said would be in development, but they never mentioned like whether or not it's still in development or when it'll be out of development, or a little bit more on it. So, you know, like at least a little bit of information would have been okay. So at the same time, I'm a little bit of a crossroads where I'm thinking, I shouldn't expect much, and I shouldn't have let my expectations control me, and I should look at what I got. So, and also, I'm also on the fence, was like, but they could have showed more, and they could have at least talked about stuff more, but whatever. I'm gonna focus on the latter of my particular review, like, new mentality. I'm gonna focus on what we got instead of what we didn't get, okay? So, what did we get? We got a new introduction to a new game series and or IP. That's interesting to see. Deus Ex Machina. Demea. I don't know. I cannot pronounce English. But anyway, Deus Ex Machina. That game series. That new game. For those of you who are curious as to what that was, who might not know, that game is made by Marvelous and First Studios. These guys are like, or at least one of them is a separate first-party company that Nintendo made, or it's part of Nintendo that they've recently made. So this is one of their first games ever, and it looks pretty cool. Honestly, it looks pretty cool. Pokemon for the Switch, at least like Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. They look fine. They look all right. They really don't look great, but they look all right. It looks a little bit weird, honestly. It's a little bit weird, but it's all right for what it's worth. Honestly, it's okay. I'm a fan of the series, so I'm a little bit judgmental on it, and I'm thinking like, well, it's a remake of Red and Blue, but they really like toning it down from the original. It's like, oh, it looks so bright and colorful, but it's like, They also said that the rival of the game is now more nice than before. And I'm like, that's not Blue. He was really mean, and you really don't need to make every single like rival nice nowadays. Like seriously, get them mean or something. Make them hate me or something. But anyway, ignoring that. What other games? Oh yeah, the smaller indie games like Killer Queen Bee, Hollow Knight, Overcooked, all these smaller indie games that are coming out. They're fine, honestly. They're all right. I think they're all right. Like I'm glad the game is. Glad the Switch is getting even more games, so that's interesting to see. Although the weird one that I found, at least the weird thing that I saw was like what do you call it, Fortnite, which was it's a bit of a crossroads for me. It's like I don't hate the game, but I don't like the game. I find like those types of games, the whole battle royale randomization game, boring, like completely boring. And I would like to play one by my like just to see how it goes, but I really can't do it on my setup for some reason. It's just not working. But like aside from that, like all the other things you do in the battle royale like genre, I don't know. I just find them boring. Like PlayerUnknown's Battleground, I find that boring. The Paladins rip-off Battleground, I find that annoying. No, just boring. Fortnite, I find it boring, even though it has like an interesting system to it, which is the only thing that'll get me into any form of like Battlegrounds. What do you call it? Battlegrounds. Interest anymore. If anything has an interesting system to it, I will bother looking into it, but if it doesn't hold my attention, I'll just leave it alone. So overall, Fortnite coming to the Switch, that's alright. It makes sense why it would come to the Switch, because it's a multiplayer game that really would do really well for everyone. It's like, hey, like, you know, it's a popular multiplayer game. We have a system that works for multiplayer, so let's do that. So you know what? That's fine. It's fine that it's there. And then we have a couple of like smaller games that were announced in between, like all the highlight reel games. That was pretty okay. I think there was another game I wanted to talk about that they gave some info about. What was it? What was it? You know what? Maybe it'll come to me. So let's see. Was there anything else that was big that was announced from Nintendo? Oh yeah, Fire Emblem. That's the one I was talking about. That was the one I wanted to talk about. Fire Emblem. It's coming spring next year, which some people are a little bit iffy about. I guess mad about. I'm not sure, because like I don't know. Like the thing with Nintendo so far is that they've been doing a well enough job of announcing games and giving a time window and saying, hey, it's coming out this time this year. And it's like some people say that this game was announced, you know, Fire Emblem for Switch was announced this year, but now they're pushing it back for next year. I'm not sure whether or not it was announced this year or not, but I guess it was, and so, you know, that's the problem. So, yeah, it got pushed back. So, like at least it's coming out at least, and it looks good. Honestly, it looks really good. So, at least like they're getting the game. So, there you go, Fire Emblem fans. You've got a Nintendo Switch game. There you go. That isn't Fire Emblem Warriors. That's the big thing. But let's talk about Smash since we really got into it. Like, I did make a Smash prediction in which I wanted characters to return / characters to stay. I wanted to see all these characters that were, you know, DLC characters just to stay in the game because they were pretty fun. They were pretty cool. And you know what? I sort of got what I wanted with an enhanced port, if I'm really to be perfectly honest. Listen, the new Smash game is pretty cool, but at the same time, you have to realize it's a port / like it's an enhanced port Ultimate Edition sort of thing. / it has a lot of stuff in it now. Smash for the Switch, from what we've seen, is basically like every single Smash character that's ever existed, plus new characters that are coming, all will battle in one big Smash Bros. Game, and that's pretty cool, honestly, just to see. It's like, wow, it's like the Smash game as a whole, like the idea from the 1990s on the N64, all accumulates into this big game in which every single character from everything is now here. Some characters I'm a bit weird about because it's like Young Link, Toon Link. I'm a bit weird about that. But other game characters like Snake from Brawl, the Ice Climbers, all these other characters are back and or slash just here to fight, and that's pretty cool to see. And it's gonna be cool to see like certain characters like Snake from Brawl fight against Bayonetta. That's pretty cool to see. Overall, it's just awesome to see that. So yeah, Smash Bros has me excited for it, and it's coming out this year, so that's pretty good. But at the same time, it's like I'm a fan of like Nintendo and I'm a fan of Smash, but it's like I don't know how to feel about like all the other games that were announced, but it's like they focused a lot of attention on Smash, so that's something that some people may not like. It's like, could you have at least given some information about some other stuff? And like, nah, we're focusing heavily on Smash, we're talking about that. We're leaving E3 because we won, yeah, no. I don't know, like, I don't think Nintendo's whole conference as a whole was bad, but I think they really could have done way better than they did. And it's a little bit here and there how I feel about that, because it's like, they really should have done more, they really should have done a little bit more, but that's asking a little bit too much, and you're expecting too much, so don't do that. But, I don't know, whatever. I think their conference was okay, it was quick, it was to the point. They really started off, like, really, like, to games, like, here's a new game, here's a DLC for a new game, that's it. And then we'll talk about some stuff, and then let's focus on Smash at the end. So, there you go. I don't know. Like, they didn't really talk about there's one thing that you really would expect them to talk about, but they didn't, was the whole 3DS stuff, like support. Like, they really need to talk about that if they stated that they do want to support the 3DS, and if that's the case, they really need to talk about that more, because it's like, you really didn't really mention anything 3DS related. Unless they did that in the Treehouse, but I didn't see anything new from the Treehouse, so I just left. So there's that. So overall, how do I feel about the whole conferences as a whole? I don't know. I thought all the smaller companies, the ones that aren't the big ones, like EA, Bethesda, Square Enix, and Ubisoft, well, I think EA and Ubisoft. No, sorry, wrong. I'm thinking of the wrong words. I think EA and Square Enix really didn't do that well. At least in my opinion, they didn't really grab my attention. Ubisoft had one good thing this year, but it wasn't really that big. I think Bethesda really did really well at what they did. And for those of you curious, I know like Digital Revolve also did something like I know they do like an E3 press conference too, but at the same time it's really like more of a joke thing that I don't really pay attention to that much. I saw a couple of clips from it and I'm like, wow, that's crazy, but it really doesn't really take itself too seriously. It didn't announce anything too big either. At least not to me, it didn't really look that great. If they announced Broforce 2 and I missed it, I would be somewhat upset, but I don't know. As for the big three, how they did, I don't know. The one thing I can at least give Nintendo on and Xbox on is that certain games like Crackdown got full like releases. Like Nintendo at least released and said like when certain big games like the Fire Emblem game, when Smash Bros, when a couple of the other games that some people would want to see like a link. When the world ends with you, like those games have finally have like announced dates and time windows. Although Xbox didn't do that with any of the big games, but they at least announced a couple of dates for some games. But Nintendo definitely did its like the greatest at this one, where it talked about, hey, you know what? Let's just announce this. Let's announce this. Let's announce this when it comes out. Let's announce this when it releases. This is when we announce it. This is the time when it's gonna be around. We're gonna say spring. We're gonna say it's coming in December, and then we're just gonna say that. That's it. So that's the thing I can give Nintendo and Xbox some credit, although Nintendo more credit for than PlayStation than Xbox, because PlayStation didn't announce anything really like with a set amount of dates. So you know, there's that. Except for Destiny, there's some things that they announced set dates, but I doubt. Like, I don't doubt, it's just I don't really think about it too much. So, yeah, For my opinion on how things went, I think Xbox had the best showing, just because it was like quick. A couple of games really got me excited. At least in my opinion, I think Xbox did their best, but they really didn't have a lot to show. That's a weird thing to really put that. I think Nintendo did a decent job too, better than PlayStation, but I really think they could have done more, but whatever. And PlayStation finally, I think, did technically the worst, just because it was really weird this year. They talked about games that were already announced, even though, like, I'd be okay, I'm okay with that. It's just, you know, you could have at least released dates, because some of these games look like they're ready to go. And no, there aren't. We have to wait a little bit longer, either next year or the coming months, to see whether or not any of them really release. And if they do, then that's pretty good. But if they don't, it's like, it's kind of annoying. But whatever. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like, comment, subscribe for more. I'll see you all next time in the next video. Until then, sign out. I'm about to take care.